Hi everyone, this is Amii and Andy, and we're here today with Trevor Dayley of Trevor Dayley Photography, one of the best wedding photographers and best photography educators in the US. For real, you are.
I don't know. Am I allowed to say no? No, no.
No, you're not. You are. So make sure you hit up the
It's
comments,
really
tell
nice.
us where you're watching live, say hi, and ask Trevor some questions. Trevor is going to talk about his 5 go-to lighting setups for photographing couples. They are 1, changing the sky lighting, skylight,
That's my creative name.
changing the skylight. 2, firework. 3, stadium lighting. 4, triangle light, and 5, blackout.
Hey Trevor, thanks for joining us. We
Yeah.
really appreciate it.
Hey,
As we say to everybody we know, and they say the same to us, we know you're busy, but thanks for taking the time to be here with the SLR Lounge photography community and dropping some knowledge on them. Appreciate it.
yeah,
Yeah.
no, I'm excited to be here. And I gotta apologize already. I'm sure everyone's thoroughly confused by the names of these lighting setups. I'll explain that here in just a second.
All right,
Oh,
cool.
awesome.
Um, so Trevor's going to talk to us about the lighting setups that he uses, and he actually has 17 of them. And you have a little bit of a story behind that that he's going to talk about, and then we're going to jump into some awesome photographs. Go for it.
Yeah, so absolutely. So there's a guy that I love his podcasting. His name is Jim Quick, and he does a podcast all about like memorization. So kind of brain hacking, brain memorization techniques, things like that. So if you love podcasts, go check his stuff out. But one of his podcasts, he talks about how if we want to remember something, we got to create a story around it. And for me, one of the things that I always struggle with when I'm on shoots is I get this brain fog as I'm start trying to set up lights, and I'm like, okay, what kind of lighting setup am I going to do now? And typically I'll go to the 45 degrees to the side, to the left or to the right, and maybe put a rim light behind them. But I often just can't think of any other lighting setups. And I know I have lots of them. I know I've done lots of different creative lighting, but I can't think of them when I'm on shoots. And so after listening to that podcast, I said, I'm going to create a story. I'm going to name all 17 different lighting setups, basically. And then I'm going to create a story based around those 17 different lighting setups. And it's very awkward and strange, and it takes about 3 or 4 minutes to go through. So I won't go through the whole story right now. But actually, I should mention, I just put a video from my WPPI presentation. It's up on YouTube, and we can put a link on it, later on. But it goes through the whole story, and it goes through all 17 lighting setups and the whole work. So today, I just picked out 5 that I thought we could just chat about. Some of them are pretty common, things that you guys are using, everyone's using, but maybe something new and interesting as well. So.
Awesome.
Perfect.
Great. Yeah, we'll definitely throw that link up in the comments, and let's get after it here. So we're going to
Excellent.
head into Lightroom, and so we're going to go with your first one where you will change up the sky color.
Yeah, exactly. So like I said, the name's not really creative here. It's just changing skylight. And basically what I mean by this is often we get these really boring sunsets. I mean, not here in Arizona. Arizona, we luck out because we get some amazing ones. But sometimes we'll be out shooting a wedding and we have this couple and we're like, man, I just want a great sunset, and then nothing really happens. Nothing too exciting. And I think as photographers, where we get to really have fun is we get to kind of be magicians out there. And one of the things that I love doing is just changing the sky color. And so like in a situation like this where it's just kind of a gray, not too exciting of a skylight, you can actually, what I love doing is I'll put a gel, an orange CTO, a full CTO gel on my flashes, and then I'll put them at the couple, and then I just change the white balance in my camera. And so the white balance in my camera is now much, it's much cooler, basically, is a lot of times how photographers will say it, but it's around 3,000 Kelvin. And so the white balance is now showing everything is blue, but the reason that they're not blue is because they're being hit with my flashes that have the orange CTOs. So I use Magmod products for all my flashes, and I just toss them up there real quick. It's very quick and simple. And that's just kind of one of my favorite lighting setups. So I'll do just the reverse. Have you guys got to play with this as well, Amii and Andy?
Yes, we have done this a few times. It's pretty rad. We love it. We usually go
Yeah.
for the orange sky, but I love the blue too. It looks super awesome.
Yeah, exactly. And that's a perfect segue because I was gonna say the other way you can do it is you can put blue. So you can put, again, I use Magmod CTB gels. I use a full CTB. It comes in their advanced gel set. And I basically will put that on my flashes and I'll fire blue light at my couples and then I just warm it all the way up. So I'll go 10,000 Kelvin. Sometimes I'll even go in Lightroom and go to like 15,000 or 20,000 Kelvin and essentially create that really pretty orange sky. So lots of fun to do, really simple little trick in it. And like I said, it blows your couples away because they kind of look back and they're like, wait, what? That sky, it doesn't look that blue or that doesn't look that orange. It's really fun to do. So
Yeah, that's awesome. Cool.
And then for this one in particular, what would your lighting setup look like?
So this one, it's kind of funny. This is a lighting setup that I use a lot, and I actually got the inspiration from this just watching stage theater shows. So I love like Broadway musicals and things like that. And if you ever see one person out on stage singing or kind of taking a solo shot on stage, they always have two lights hitting them, one from one side, one from the other side. Sometimes one might be a little bit stronger power than the other one, but you always see this kind of two light setup, and I call it the double rainbow because it kind of I see like a rainbow between the two lights with my couple, kind of this arch. And it's magical. So that's what I call it, is my double rainbow light. But basically it's my one to the left, one to the right. And then, like I said, they're both have Magwad CTO gels on them, full CTO.
Great. Awesome. Very cool. Number two, you call your Firework.
Yeah.
I laugh at I laugh
Love it.
at no, I laugh at these names. It's so funny because the names don't really make a whole lot of sense unless you actually get to hear the story. So I'll just plug that YouTube video one more time. So you guys have to go watch the YouTube video to get the whole story.
Yeah.
But
It's
but
awesome.
yeah, so this is a behind the scenes. Can we see
Yep.
the original first, and then I'll kind of explain how it's set up, and then we can. Perfect, awesome. So do you guys want me to just kind of talk through this image as well?
Yeah, do it.
Okay, right on. So basically this shot it's two flashes. The one behind them, the reason that light has this really interesting design and color is because I used called a mag beam. And it's by Magmod. And the mag beam, the guy is actually holding it right at his hip. His name is Rylan. And so Rylan and Tiffany are there. He's holding one of my flashes with the mag beam on it. And it basically, what it does is, the mag beam is kind of a 2-in-1 modifier, but the way I'm using it here is I'm creating a pattern of light behind the couples. So if we go back to that behind the scenes shot, you'll see that it's just a large cement wall, nothing exciting happening there. But you can see that light, that pattern of light behind him. And that's being created with that mag beam. And then I use the mag mask. Now, if anyone's wondering, some people who maybe own this product, they might be saying, well, geez, I don't have that mask. And the reason is it was a limited edition mask that they had with those people who supported their Kickstarter project when this came out a couple years ago. So it's not one that you can buy online right now, but there's tons of really cool patterns and things. So again, just to talk through this, I used the mag mask. I used the red gel to kind of match with her dress and add some color there. And then in front of them is a grid with a sphere on it, a mag sphere. So I got a mag grid, a mag sphere, and I'm using a Godox AD200. And the one thing that's important here that I would tell people, if you're crossing two kind of lights, so like I had that light behind him, could have been a color, it could have been whatever, but then I had the light above him. You can see that light above him is high enough and it's angled so that the shadow is not going into the pattern. I think that's always important because sometimes people will do things and then they'll, their color goes away or they lose the pattern or whatever. And it's typically because you're kind of polluting one light source with another. And so if you look at the shadow on the ground, you can see that their shadow kind of is cast away from that. So for those who are giving this a shot, I just want to point that out as well.
That's a great tip.
So this was with a 135 I shot that with a 135, a Canon 135, and then the other one was like a 20 millimeter or something just to show behind the scenes.
Nice. Very cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, thank you. Kind of fun, right?
Yeah,
It's
totally.
super fun.
Add some nice drama to it.
Yeah, it's a great compliment to the expression that you're capturing. It's awesome.
Well, and you figure sometimes again, it's showing those couples. In fact, I'll do the pie move, Pie from SLR Lounge, right? We all know Pie. I love I think it was on Creative Live for the first time when he was talking about being a magician and he does this, right? And that's essentially, and that's what we get to do for our clients. When we create really cool and fun things like this, then we turn it around and show it to them. And again, they're just like, what? Like, what kind of craziness are you? And then they send you referrals. They send you their friends' names and so forth. So
Yeah, that's awesome.
Great.
Cool. All right. The next one that we're going to take a look at is stadium lighting. I love the name for that one. It's awesome.
yeah, the only reason I call this stadium lighting is because it reminds me of, like them like in a stadium, like,
Yeah.
all the lights focused on them. It kind of, I don't know, kind of like a Dancing with the Stars kind of, feeling or
Yeah.
something like that.
It
Um,
totally does.
yeah. So I think it's pretty obvious to most what's happening here is just two flashes behind them and then one up to my right. The reason I like to call it stadium light is because I typically will bring my aperture much smaller than normal. So I'll bring it up to like f8, f11, f16, when typically I'm shooting at like f5.6, f2.8, somewhere around there. So I'm using a much smaller aperture. And the reason I do that is I'll do it so I can get a little bit of the star effect behind them. I think on this one I didn't go too high. I might have been like maybe f8. Um, yeah. So that's the reason I call it stadium light is just those little star effects behind them and something a little different. And then of course these are gelled, again with the Magma gels. I got lavender on one side and rose on the other. So
Nice. Awesome.
yeah,
And then what kind of, I know you said that, you kind of have that stadium vibe, that Dancing with the Stars
yeah.
vibe. What kind of direction are you giving the couple in this situation?
Yeah, so that's a great question because it is interesting because in something like this, you definitely don't want people, well, I shouldn't say definitely. Everybody's an artist and you can always do whatever works for you, but
Right.
but you want it to be. I kind of feel like you want it to be like more kind of some kind of action or something. I mean, it could even be something fun. It could be jumping or dancing or whatever. But I'm always looking for some kind of a little bit of movement or something along those lines. So. And something like this, I might have told to Rylan, hey, get real close to Tiffany, pull her in really tight. I like to say, make her bend a little bit, and then typically I'll. Andy, did I see your eyes light up when I said that?
Yeah.
You're like, what? No, I like to say make her bend a little bit, typically when it comes to like any kind of dipping, I usually will say just a tiny bit, like very little. Again, nothing wrong with it, but I think too much can get a little bit too exaggerated. But I feel like this is kind of feels a little bit more natural, like he's stepping in and they have this embrace. Biggest thing is just making sure they have a connection of some kind. So, um, and then just one last thing I left off on the lighting is it does have one more light. It was to my right. And I can't remember if I was holding this or I had somebody holding it, but typically I'll use a monopod and I'll just put a flash with a mag sphere, sometimes a mag grid and a mag sphere, and that will be what I'm lighting them up with, just to the right of me. So
Okay.
yeah,
Awesome.
yeah, we're just flying through these, right?
We are actually, yeah, we
Yeah.
really are. Do you, so while we're on this one, because you said you had magenta and rose, and before you
Hmm.
talked about how you were looking to complement her dress with
Yeah.
red. How do you plan for that? Like you
You
just
know, Yeah, no, that's a great question, Andy. I think in a lot of situations it's sometimes I'll just pull out honestly what color I have right there in my little mag wallet and I'll just kind of go through them real quickly. I'm at nighttime and I'll just kind of pick out some colors that might work. I remember in this situation I had originally pulled out a blue and then I thought, oh man, that's going to look like fleece. We got red and blue going on even though I think they complement each other well, I just thought, oh, I'll go for something a little different. So I didn't really have any particular reason why I chose lavender and rose here. It was more just because those are the first ones I pulled out that I thought would kind of complement or at least go a little bit with it. Um, but a lot of times I love using complementary colors. If I can use like oranges and blues as complement, I'm going to go for that. That's probably my go-to. Um, so I wish I had like a
no,
really
that's good.
intelligent scientific answer for you, but really it
Well,
was
I mean,
probably just like, hey,
no, I think that's good. Like knowing your complementary colors helps for sure. I know
yeah,
that, personally, me, I'm a little color challenged sometimes. I generally wear black, so I don't really know. So I kind of, I'll be like, Amy, what colors, what color should this be? Something like that. So like if you don't
yeah.
have somebody there with you, you kind of
Yeah. No, for sure. And I've used some crazy colors. I even like sometimes I'll even blast color on the couple. So like one time, for example, I put lavender on a couple, and then when I white balanced it in Lightroom later on, you create like this green backdrop behind them, or green on the cement and stuff. So it's really sometimes I'll just use colors just to see what I can do later in Lightroom with it. Um, so yeah,
Awesome.
it's just kind of interesting. I always think it just adds a little extra something, you know.
Cool.
Yeah, for sure.
Before we jump to the next one, you got a couple shout outs from Dave Shea. He said you're the man.
Dave, Dave is the man.
Jared's Dance is hey all. Matt Gruber has never heard of you. And,
That's
there you
good.
go.
Well, that's good that he's watching then. He gets to learn a little bit. You know what? All three of those guys are incredible photographers. Jared and Dave and who was the last guy? No, I'm just kidding, Matt.
Yeah,
All three are incredible photographers. They inspire me all the time. So
awesome. All right, let's jump to number 4, your triangle light setup.
yeah, so triangle is it's very similar to stadium light, and triangle it's a very popular lighting. It goes back a long time. I think probably the biggest evangelist of triangle light is Bob Davis. He talks a lot about it as well. Teaches a lot about it. But basically, it's very similar to the stadium light. The only thing that I will say on stadium light is sometimes I'll just use one light, like in the corner, like a flare kind of coming across. Whereas triangle light, I'm always using 3. So on this one, though, it's very similar to what that last setup was. In fact, it was shot in the exact same spot. The only thing is I moved the 2 lights that were behind them. I moved them off to the side, so they're just outside camera. So I have one light to the right, one light to the left. They are not gelled, so I took the gels off. Often I'll just use like a mag grid or a mag sphere to kind of control my light. So I believe, if I remember correctly, on this one I had a mag grid with my light to my left, a mag grid with my light to my right, and it's a little bit behind them. So that's creating that nice hair light. And then I had one in front, just to my right here, and that was with a mag sphere on it. And now you can see that shadow going off to the left there just a little bit. So basically just 3 lights. And what's nice about this is I will say this is what I use a lot on receptions. So when I'm shooting wedding receptions, I'll set up triangle light on the dance floor. And what it allows me to do is I can move anywhere on that dance floor, and I just got great light everywhere I go. So it's a light that I not only use for engagements and so forth, but also for that kind of my go-to.
Awesome.
That's awesome. About how high do you put your lights for this setup?
Yeah, so I like to, that's a great question as well, because I like to make sure, at one time, I used to go really high. I used to go like 12, 13 feet. And then I started realizing that I would get these terrible shadows, like under the jawline and things like that. So then I dropped it down to like 10 feet. And then I kind of kept coming down a little bit more. So I would say I'm probably in that maybe 8.5, 9 feet, maybe max, probably something like that. I like to make sure that I don't create really strong shadows under the jaw. Like I like to have it fill in a little bit, but at the same time, I don't want to be low enough that there is no shadow. I don't want it to be like, I want some dimension in the shot. So I would say I'm probably around 8 feet, 8.5, maybe 9 feet max.
Okay, cool. And when you use it for receptions, do you keep it at that height, or do you raise it up higher for receptions?
Yeah, I will go higher at receptions just so that I can make sure that I get across any tall people. And then it spills over the audience. So yeah, reception's probably closer to 10 feet. There's a stand that I love. It's called the Manfrotto, and I believe it's 1004 BAC, I think is what it is. I've been asked that question numerous times, and so I feel like that's the answer. 1004 BAC. They're these lay flat, what do you call it? Stacking stands, and they're amazing. I love them. So.
And one more question, I think people might be wondering is when you use this lighting at receptions, do you put any modifiers on the flashes?
Yeah, I do. I like to use, again, mag grids. So I basically, I use Magmod products for all my flashes. Essentially, that's what I use all day, every day, all day, every day. So at receptions, I put mag grids, and the reason I do that is because I want to make sure that my light from my flashes is not spilling all over the room. And basically, a lot of the weddings I do, they'll have uplights. So it's really popular now for couples to buy uplights to put in the rooms. So they might have pinks or blues or things like that that are all around the room. And the last thing I want is my flashes to kind of cancel all that out. So I typically keep them at pretty low powers. maybe 1/32, 1/64 power, somewhere around there. And I usually will have matte grids on them so that that light is focused in one direction of the dance floor and it's not spilling all over the room.
Okay. Awesome. Thanks.
You bet.
Some good info. Okay, the final one is called Blackout. So let's talk about Blackout. Tell us how you do this.
Yeah, so when I think of a blackout light, I think of, okay, let's say I have a scenario and I'm like, okay, everything looks good here. I mean, I got this window that I can create a reflection with, but behind the couple, behind Tiffany and Rylan in this shot was this permanent trash can. It was one of those really heavy, big industrial cement type trash cans.
Right.
And it was for the science center is what it was. But basically I was like, you know what? I love the reflection coming off the window, but I do not want that trash can behind. And, you know, I could Photoshop it out or something like that, but why go through the trouble? So in this scenario, I use a mag snoot, and a snoot basically allows you to really focus your light. I kind of compare it to like a pin light. So you can really focus your light into one direction of your photograph and essentially not put light anywhere else. So before I shoot this shot, I'll actually take my camera, I'll increase my aperture, increase my shutter to like 1/200, my ISO to maybe 100 or 200 ISO, something really low, and basically make it just black. I mean, that's why I call it my blackout. Like I'll literally take one shot and just make sure everything's super black and dark in the shot. And then I'll set up my flash, put the mag snoot on my subject. And now the only place light's going to hit is on my subject. And that's not going everywhere else in the environment. It's not lighting up the trash can, all that kind of stuff. So that's why I call it my blackout light. Basically only bringing light to where I want it and blocking out everything else.
Awesome.
Awesome.
Yeah, it's a great strategy.
And then for this one in particular, obviously you found a nice reflection.
Mm-hmm.
What made you choose that?
Yeah, so along the Arizona Science Center, there's a big stretch of windows, and so I love looking for reflections. I can't remember who was with me. So when I was doing this shoot, I was basically preparing some shots for my presentation at WPPI. Essentially, I wanted to show a lot of different photographs from different weddings, but I also wanted to show all 17 lighting setups with the same couple. And so we basically, I had posted in a group here in Arizona, hey guys, I'm going to go out and shoot Rylan and Tiffany. Does anyone want to join us? And there's probably 4 or 5 photographers that kind of came out and were just watching and asking questions and so forth. So it's kind of just a fun hangout with other photographers. And one of them actually mentioned this shot, and I apologize that I don't have a name with me, but they said, oh, we could create a reflection right here. And I said, that would be beautiful. Let's do it. So I'm going to give credit to that person. I wish I could give you their name, but it was their idea. They basically said, let's create a reflection. I said, that would be awesome. Let's hide the trash can and everything behind them, and we'll use a mag snoot on the shot. So
awesome.
I love it. Love it.
Super
Love
awesome.
it.
So great. So thanks, Trevor. So we covered changing the sky color, your firework, making patterns with a mag beam, stadium lighting, which are your starlights.
Yep,
and,
exactly.
Triangle light, and then blackout.
Yep. So those are 5, and I know we don't want these shows to go too long, so that's all we were able to cover today. But like I said, for those who want to check those out, definitely just go look for. We'll put a link in the comments, I suppose.
Yeah, we can put a link in the comments, and then the last thing we were going to do was take everybody over to SLRLounge.com, and there's 2 really cool features over on SLRLounge.com. You can submit to wedding awards, and when you get an account, anybody can get a free account there and submit to wedding awards. You can do one photo per month, and it's really cool because when you get that account, you can also go on and score other people's photographs. The other really cool thing is that you can get specific critiques on your photographs. So you can go to slrlounge.com/critique. And so we're going to take a look at one of those right now. And can you see that, Trevor?
Yeah.
Okay,
yeah,
cool.
Absolutely.
So the really cool thing about the critique is you can learn a lot yourself. So you can go in there and you can just go right into the search function. You can find anything you want. So we just did a search before, and we did lighting, and then when you search lighting, you get a whole list of stuff. Lighting 101 from the SLR Lounge lighting course, lighting 201. So we clicked on creative lighting, and we thought this was really interesting. This is submitted by Kim Williams, and the really cool thing about this is that we thought it went really nicely with your number 5 go-to lighting setup that you talked about, which was Blackout. And so she had actually asked for some specific critique, which is always a really good tip for somebody submitting critique, asking for something specific, because then you'll get specific response. She said this shot was lit from the right, and I raised the shutter speed to darken the background to focus the light on the couple. Any comments, thought, or suggestion are welcome.
Yeah. So, do you mind is it my turn to comment?
Yeah, jump right
awesome. in. Awesome. So, first off, Kim, you did an amazing job. A couple things that I absolutely love about the shot is, again, the connection with the couple. I love how you have the lighting on them, and I love how she said that she raised the shutter speed to basically darken it all out, or blacken it out, right? So, amazing job right there, Kim. And it looks like this is a really interesting environment. It says, let's see, is it Pearl Brewery? Is that what it says there?
Yep, Pearl Brewery in San Antonio.
Yeah, love it, love it. So a couple things I'm noticing. It looks like the shutter speed is 1/400th of a second, which at 1/400th of a second, you do have to have flashes that can do high-speed sync. So for those who are looking at an image like this and want to create it, you would have to shoot your flashes at high-speed sync. Now, one thing she could have done as a difference is she could have just kept her shutter speed at like 1/200th or 1/160th of a second and just raised her aperture up. So her aperture right now is at 1.8, it looks like. So she could have gone to, f4, f5.6, something like that. Still get a really nice dark background, but not have to use high-speed sync on your flashes. So just something, if somebody's looking at this image and wants to replicate it, that's an idea. I think if I were to say anything to maybe any kind of improvement is maybe just a little bit of light on the left side of him to create some separation between his hair and the backdrop, because it looks like, and it might just be my screen, but it looks like the jacket and the backdrop and his hair and everything kind of blend a little bit. So I like to tell people, if you can just create a little bit of separation, it's awesome. Not that it's always needed, but otherwise I absolutely love the shot. I love the connection between the couple, and I love how it's kind of this interesting environment. One other thing that's kind of fun too is you take an environment like this and just add like a weird color or something in the background, like like one of those CTO gels or something, and just light up kind of around the brewery, since that's what it is. Might be kind of interesting. But otherwise, Kim, you did an amazing job. Great shot. Love it. Good job blocking that out and really putting the focus on them.
Cool.
Yeah.
Awesome. Thanks, Trevor.
Yeah, that was
Amii,
great.
anything to add on there?
No, that's perfect. I love it.
Nailed it. Great. So it's really cool when you can get on there and submit for some critique, and just like that, you'll see comments from people. I actually added a little comment there summarizing what Trevor just said for Kim, and thanks, Trevor, for doing that. We really appreciate it.
Absolutely. I do got to say, SLR Lounge has an incredible site, and the way they, the awards and the way they allow photographers to put photos out there for critique, they're really creating a lot of value for our industry. So hats off to them.
Brad. Well, Trevor, we're not going to keep you too much longer here, man. We just really thank you for joining us. You guys can check out more of Trevor's work on his website, trevordayley.com. And it's best to hit him up on Facebook. And you will always see him pretty active in the MagMod Facebook community group as well. And he actually just threw the link up in there to his YouTube video, which we will also put in the comments here. Anything you have coming up, Trevor? Any workshops, conventions? I know where you guys were just at Shutterfest.
Yeah. We were just at Shutterfest. I love going to different conventions. So I think the next one coming up is Photo Plus out in New York. But so we get the summer to shoot. I don't have any workshops coming up. I've been working on some different projects, kind of little side projects here and there. And then also MagMod does have a lot of videos that are in production. So again, if you guys like this kind of stuff, if you like learning about modifiers on flashes and things like that, definitely subscribe to their channel. But and you'll see me in a lot of those videos, which might be a bad thing. Maybe you don't want to see this ugly.
No, that's not true. Trevor, you'll be king. We love you.
Oh, you're too nice, Amy. So
Right.
nothing, no workshops though. But yeah, hit me up, trevordayley.com, Dayley. If you guys have any questions, you can find me on Facebook or like you said, in the Magmod community. Always happy to help out.
Great.
Right.
So everybody out there, thanks for joining us. Don't forget to submit for the April Wedding Photography Awards, slrlounge.com/awards, and the March award winners will be revealed this week, actually.
Yeah.
And
Right.
we will be back on April 24th with Megan Allen, who rocks.
Woo.
And she's going to be talking about her must-have gear for the wedding day. So thanks
Megan's
a lot, guys.
awesome.
And
Megan's
we'll see you in a
incredible.
couple
And
weeks.
Amii, Andy, thank you guys. You guys are awesome.
Yeah.
Thanks,
Thank
Trevor.
you.
Great job.
All right, take care, guys.
Bye. You too.